The Silly Goose Gang podcast.
We are back with episode 34 of the Silly Goose Gang podcast, and we're delighted to be joined this evening by explorer, cave diver, technical diver, Robbie Schmittner. So, Robbie, thank you very much for joining us this evening or this afternoon, your time out in the Yucatan, I believe you are.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, nice. Just for people that are listening that maybe don't know you, Robbie, I kind of first, I suppose, discovered you or heard about you through the TV show Undiscovered Worlds you did with Steve Batchel.
Yeah.
Some of that, I found out when I was doing a bit of research that you kind of mapped out and discovered, and I believe it's 300 kilometres of caves you connected there, and I apologise if I butcher this pronunciation, the Sakakatun and the Dos Ojos cave system.
It's the dos ojos, which means two eyes in Spanish. But yeah, that was the last big hit, the last big connection in this 22 years, which I'm here trying to find caves, explore new cave passageways, and make connections. Yeah.
Awesome. So where did that start? Where did you end up? You know, you've just said there 22 years you've been doing this for. So take us back. When did the desire to go underground, underwater, where did that come from?
It was just I started diving at all as a hobby in Germany, where we don't have a lot of possibilities to go diving. Some little quarries, filled quarries and stuff, but it was always very attractive. I loved diving all the time, and I started that as a hobby. And it was a coincidence that the instructor I had, Gunnar Wagner in Germany, was married to a Mexican woman. And when I first met them, they said, "Oh, we're going to open a dive shop in Mexico one day." And that day came, and I was a dive master with them already. I already started helping them in teaching people diving and so on. We had a friendship. I started working with them. And then they went to Mexico and said, "Okay, now we're there in the peninsula Yucatan, and you have to come, you have to see it." And we went into this cave diving. That is it. That's the best ever. There's nothing you can compare it with. You have to do a course, and they were damn right. I got there, I did the course, and I got hooked completely. I couldn't get that caves out of my mind anymore.
Yeah, it's such an interesting part of the world, Robbie. I think everybody, connects the Yucatan with the comet impact that killed off the dinosaurs. So, were you aware of that before you went? Was that part of the attraction, or?
Not at all. And actually, that crater or that hit of the big meteor, you can't see, you can't tell. It's way too big. You couldn't see that has a shape. And also coming here, people were talking about that the caves were formed by that hit of that crater, that meteor, and it seems to be nobody had really a clue if that is true or not. It was just that rumor going around. But by my studies over the last 22 years, I might be actually able to prove that it indeed has something to do. The cave forming in this area here of horizontal cave, that is related to some bigger fracture zones inside the peninsula, which cross the whole peninsula, and those big fracture zones might very well be formed by the big hit of that meteor on the peninsula.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's obviously, I think, well, I know for a fact, I was fascinated with that area. So, when I've seen some of your, pictures on Instagram and stuff, it's amazing, really amazing part of the world. I know, is Tulum that you stay in? Is that where you stay now, Robbie?
Yeah, I'm in Tulum.
Yeah, I know that's a really beautiful part of the world. So it's kind of like paradise, and it's kind of like paradise, and you get to do what you like to do.
Yeah,
for a living,
absolutely.
so. It's quite a
Actually,
cool way to live.
It was paradise when I came here. I love that. It was 8,000 people living in the town. It was just really that tiny little fisherman's town. And by now, it grew a bit too big for me and too hip. It's like a hipster paradise right now, and I do have a little bit of a beard, but I'm not a big fan of that whole hipster movement, you know. But it is still a beautiful place. It's the beaches are amazing. The jungle, all the culture you have here in this area. You have these ruins. I go out in the jungle, find new cenotes, stumble over ruins which have never been reported before. It's like Indiana Jones life here, you know. And Wild West, I can just go out and go explore and be free. And that's what I love here, even now, still now.
Yeah, I suppose as you say, it almost is like real Indiana Jones. Was the Mayans in the Yucatan as well? Is that the ruins you're talking that you're kind of
Yes.
stumbling over? Was that part of the attraction when you left Germany, or is that something you've kind of came to since you've moved to Lund?
That came all with that moving here because I'm not too much interested in this stuff like culture and well, I love it. I love it in some part and food, old clothes, dances, culture. It's cool. But I have seen now so many ruins that I couldn't be bothered anymore, you know. And but it came also with the diving because going out there in those cenotes, going out into these places, the caves, that were those cenotes. The cenotes are the entrances to these systems. There's a whole Mayan myth about it. It's like the underworld is called Xibalba, like my dive shop is. Well, my dive shop is after that, no? So they called it after the underworld, and you were only able to go into the underworld by passing those cenotes, which were sacred to the Mayans, and therefore they also at cenotes they built altars and stelas and stuff in some cenotes where they offered to the gods, offered to the underworld, and also threw stuff into the cenotes. So we find bones, animal bones, human bones, pottery, sometimes a little bit of jade or obsidian. That's stuff what the Mayans had, you know. We around Tulum area, we in the countryside, so not too much big offering was going on, but we find stuff all the time. And I had the chance also to be involved in archaeological projects, and we were diving cenotes, for example, in the world famous site, Chichen Itza, where many tourists travel to. We've been diving there, and there's like massive, hundreds of skeletons, thousands of pottery stuff like plates, vases, and all that stuff which was offered. And apparently even gold there, but that came from the Aztecs. So there was stuff proved that different cultures like the Aztecs in Mexico City area and the Mayans did trades and gave presents to ruler, and then they threw it in the cenote because it was the best they could do with it. They gave it to the gods, you know.
Yeah.
I've been involved in a lot of very interesting expeditions and explorations here in this area.
Do you have you became friends with local experts, local archaeologists to explore with?
I have become friends and enemies with those guys.
Friends and enemies.
And enemies, yeah. No, there's some stuff going on here. I was even blamed that I would have stolen a human skeleton, and federal police was investigating at me. But it was just some scumbags who tried to get rid of me, you know. And then we found out this archaeologist who did that was not even an archaeologist. It was a fake, you know. But that was a bad example. There is a lot of good examples too. That we have. That I'm working with archaeologists, official archaeologists, and with the INA, it's called. It's the National Institution of Archaeology and what is the other one? History. That's the short. The short part is INA, and these guys, they're in charge of anything you find or any archaeology in Mexico, and that's massive. They have so much stuff; it's incredible from like all over the country. And I'm working hand in hand with these people. I find stuff in new caves. I report it, and right now we built a new project with a friend of me from the States, and we actually want to bring more technology into this whole thing. So we do photogrammetry to make 3D models of findings, of caves, of passages, using LiDAR to fly over the jungle, finding what's cenotes, and even ground penetrating radar to find spaces and holes underground with even going under yet. You know? So just changing a lot now.
Just to go back a little bit there, Robbie. Why do people want to get rid of you? Why do they not like you being there?
People which have success always have also people which don't like him. It's otherwise you don't have success. And
okay.
By now, I think I can say I'm the explorer with the most experience in the peninsula, and there's people that try to do that much, try to do the same thing, and they're not as successful. And then it's maybe just how to say jealousy in some points. Well, that the one which really wanted to get rid of me, I discovered that the guy was a fake, and that he had made this along his way, that he got money and rewards by being a fake. And I told everyone that he was a fake, like public and to the government and so on and so on. And they didn't like that. That's where they wanted to get rid of me. And when we said they wanted to send me back to Germany there.
That makes sense.
Didn't happen.
Why is stealing skeletons, is that a common thing in these caves, or?
Unfortunately, yes. There is. The explorers found at least a dozen, let's say, skeletons of Ice Age. Now we're talking of a different period of time. We find either bones or rests of archaeology right by the entrance, and then that's most of the time Mayan age, 800 to 2000 years back. But when we find bones farther way in the cave, we already almost have the guarantee that those bones were from last ice age, because last ice age was when these cave systems have been dry. The proof of that is all the stalactites and stalagmites. They couldn't grow underwater. They grow when the cave's been dry, and dripstone coming through, water coming through them, forming dripstones. In that time, people used those caves too, and animals. We find tons of bones in these caves all the time. My record is 9 elephants out of Ice Age times. You know? And sloths, like giant sloths and ground sloths, I stopped counting because there's so many bones everywhere. But in the whole community, we also have found at least a dozen human skeletons out of that Ice Age, so 12 to 13,000 years ago. And those bones are very interesting. For the longest time, they were considered the oldest skeletons, oldest human remains of the whole Americas, from Canada down to Ireland. And apparently, there was just some proof that there was people way farther back than that. But it was the oldest skeletons for the longest time, and therefore very interesting. And there's different groups which want to study it, and it's a competition, and it also people play dirty there, you know.
So So are people stealing skeletons to give to people to study? Is that what's going on?
No, I don't know. For example, there's one group which say they are archaeologists and researchers. They took 9 of the skeletons, but we found out with another team that they never had the permissions to do so. So they took them out, they have them in labs, they do studies, they do publish stuff, but they never had actually really permits. And that was also one thing which I published, and people wanted to get rid of me, you know. I was a bit of a threat to them for a moment there.
It's understandable. I suppose it goes back, if you know, in Victorian England in sort of the early 1900s, there was a real craze when Egypt was opening up of the kind of rich people wanted a mummy, and they would have mummy unwrapping parties and invite all their friends. Oh, look at this mummy we've just got from Cairo, and they would literally unwrap it and pull it to pieces as part of a dinner party. So
that sounds great, with a couple of beers and I would be in.
It just goes to show it still goes on if people are, you know, taking those remains out of caves, and I suppose some of them go to legitimate institutes, but I dare say some of them have found their way into people's, you know, living rooms and bedrooms, and someone's got a nice age skeleton as a point of interest.
One thing that one thing that you realize from, you know, doing this podcast is there's some really strange and obscure people in the world who want to steal skeletons.
I imagine.
It's some extreme.
It was really bad. Those people, they really tried to set me up with the amount they made with federal police, but then even tried to defame me in the newspapers. So they bought somebody at the local newspaper, and they made a 4-page article in it, and they took out of the internet. They took pictures of me diving and 2 other guys, and they put out pictures in color, full size, and these guys are the leaders of looter, a ring of archaeology looters, and selling it to the States. And he stole a skeleton which is $12 million worth, and it's like, what the hell is going on? You know, it's just, they just really tried to get me badly in trouble and get me kicked out of the country. But the good thing is that same article, they had written that they had done at that stolen skeleton at a certain date, at a certain time. They had been there taking pictures, doing their research, and it was still there. And then 2 days later, just 2 days later, a diver went there to look at it, and he reported it stolen. So it had to be stolen in a frame of 2 days there, where in these 2 days, and that was written in the article. And the good thing was, I opened up my passport and I had stamps of Brazil in there, that I was in Brazil at these 2 days. So I was off the hook very fast, you know. Yeah. And it didn't work out for them. So for me, that was very lucky that I was traveling at that time.
Yeah. So just because you mentioned, you know, being in trouble with the law, is there any, you know, in Tulum, is there any problems with, you know, obviously Mexico's famous for having issues with cartels. I assume Tulum's away from that, or is there influences there someplace?
Let's say it like that. For the longest years, we didn't have any problems here. Nothing whatsoever. It was a little town mentality. It was peaceful. Most of tourists were backpackers. There was pot smoking going on and stuff. So, but that was just like all easy, no big problems. Within the last years, we can definitely tell there is more of this stuff going on, and it is, I would say, to blame to the way how tourism has been growing here. To make it that hipster paradise, People come down here, they wrap themselves up in some nomad clothes, which is a rack off the floor, basically, right? And then they get high, and the new things are, what are the psychedelic stuff, because they call medicine, and you find yourself and all that crap. Holy shit. And there's a big market, big market for drugs. And of course, if you have a big drug market, people come and bring it. And again, just like the deal with the people archaeology, different groups fighting each other, the drug people do too. No?
Yeah.
So it stays, I can say that way, it stays within the like crime. Drug related usually stay within the people which sell it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tourists don't get involved. There's no problem there. I think of what I realized so far, what I've seen over the last years, there is more crime, but it stayed within the cartels or the drug selling people.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. Takes their income, doesn't it?
Yeah. Say again, I couldn't.
I suppose it makes sense because if they're keeping it away from the tourists will keep coming, the tourists will keep buying stuff, and then it keeps it rolling. It kind of makes sense.
Sure.
It's a shame because it ruins a really nice little village. It's a shame. Now, is there any? Does any of that stuff make you want to go explore someplace else or anything, Robbie? Is there any?
I'm not a very social guy anyway. I'm not happy. I'm not a person going down to the beach and hanging around with the crowd. And I'm happy when I'm alone in the jungle, walking through the bush, no people around me. Come back to my family. Have little people, not so much people around. And it gets every year worse. I don't know.
That's sounds. That reminds me of myself, Robbie. I like nothing better than to go into the Highlands in Scotland and be alone in hills, away from everybody.
I want to see those by one time. The Highlands. Yeah. Summertime for sure. I'm not making it.
I'm actually heading off tomorrow. I'm going to leave tomorrow morning, go camp and go climb some hills in a little area that I really like. So
Awesome.
Tomorrow's supposed to be a really nice day. So yeah, I'm going to go and do that. So yeah, I would highly recommend it at some point, Robbie. But is there any other areas around about South America that you want to go explore and get into, or do you think will you be based in the Yucatan for life now?
Not sure. But definitely my work's not ready yet. No? And when I came here in, when was it, 98, there was a number of around, in between somewhere 300 to 400 kilometers of cave passage already known in total. And now, by 2020, it's close to 1,600 kilometers of known cave passage. That is, of course, not only my work. Like Alistair said already in the beginning, around 300 kilometers, and somewhere around 300 to 400 kilometers is, I think, what I personally installed and discovered. But in total, with the whole diving community, it grew up to 1,600 kilometers. And what makes my expedition and explorations different to what most people have done so far, in 2003, I started to look at different possibilities, because what had limited explorers' possibilities or explorers' success to go more caves was their own mindset. When I came here and looked up to these big guys, which were already there, and they were my mentors and stuff, they said, oh no, you have to look always for cave which runs from northeast to southwest. That is the caves which are going, because it runs straight to the ocean. So if it goes sideways, don't waste the time. And then I'm looking at those caves. I'm collecting all the cave data as I could. I went out and asked other people, would you share your data with me? I went into some caves which were forgotten by the explorers and resurveyed what they had done. I went and explored more new cave and put that on the same map, and I put together the big picture. And as I put this big picture more and more together, I get new clues, and I say, hey, that really looks like there's a cave, there's another cave, there's another cave. They're like pearls on a string. And when I dive in them, the flow comes always from that side and goes to that side. And then when I go to the next cave down here, it picks up the flow in the same pattern and goes down the next way. These caves need to be connected because the water runs from there and comes to here. It's so easy to see. So what I started to do was actually looking for connections of different systems which had been found. And I was successful. I started connecting one cave to another and one cave to another. And then even people which were big names in the area, like Bill Phillips, Jim Koch, Mike Madden, and it's like, I thought, hey, I want to connect this cave over here with that cave over there. And people were laughing at me and saying, hey, guy, what are you smoking? I want some of that shit, you know? And now, 20 years later, I were able actually to connect those caves, the Dos Ojos and the Sakaktoon, and even much, much more, because people were looking for that connection there, at that special area, even before I got there, you know? But nobody could also believe that we'd go another 15 kilometers like a crow flies down the road and connect caves into Loom Town with that cave. So I found a lot of new stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, that actually cave does run parallel in several ways, parallel to the coastline and not just straight to it. And now with some new clues, new expeditions, I do actually believe that I can also at some point explain why all these caves have been forming. Nobody could explain that so far. Nobody knows why it is that this massive cave system with 1,600 kilometers has been forming so far. And with making my big picture bigger and bigger, I do believe that all these caves, which even like I got awards for like the biggest water-filled cave in the world, they're just a byproduct. All these caves are just a little byproduct of a massive fracture zone which runs parallel to the Caribbean coastline. It's called the Holbox fracture, and this is really the mother cave of these other caves. This is where water runs, like you could imagine it like a normal river, and on a topside river anywhere, the Thames or whatever, the Nile, and it goes over hundreds of kilometers carrying water through the whole country, across the country. And it does that here too, but underwater. It runs all in cave underwater. And this Holbox fracture is very, very close to the Caribbean coast. There's only a thin strip of limestone separating the Caribbean coast and the Holbox fracture. And there's a lot of water with big pressure running through that Holbox fracture, and that thin limestone layer is not strong enough to hold that pressure inside. It seeps out. It's hiding out. It's going out to the ocean because there's not enough pressure or not enough force to hold it. Where you towards the inland have a massive plateau, the whole peninsula of Yucatan, but towards the ocean only that fine strip. And what I even more believe is the ocean currents along the Caribbean coast, they pulling up really strongly to the north along the coastline, and they also pulling out, sucking out the fresh water of that Holbox fracture. And that's how those caves have been formed. That's my theory right now, and I'm on that right now. That's my work now, my exploration work, that I will find proof for that theory. You know?
Ah, man, I fucking love nature.
That's so
Yeah, nature is amazing. Nature is amazing.
cool. So when you're doing these expeditions that you're talking about, Robbie, how long are you underground or and underwater for when you know you're doing these connections and you're making the connections from cave to cave? How, on an average, how long are these expeditions lasting for?
The good thing is in this area here, I'll be bored right now, and it's already midday, and I go say, okay, I go out and explore. I just take a truck, I drive out in the jungle, and I can do a 2-3 hour dive in the afternoon and come back home. Easy, you know? And have been in a place where no person had been ever before me. It's so easy. You know? But especially when it is like, when I'm looking for a connection in between two different systems, it's not easy, because if it would have been easy, it would have been done. It usually is like that people which have been exploring in a certain area stopped because conditions got maybe too difficult. Cave got too small, all very silty. So you're moving in there, you make everything milk, and you have to come out blind following the line you installed. It's kind of stressy sometimes, no? But
I was going to say,
yeah. So people stop in some areas, but that's usually where I start again. To go there, poke into the wall, look for even the smallest hole, looking through, is there anything you can go through or around, and make your way to the other side where another system is sitting and waiting to be connected. And I try to make the in water time usually as small as possible. That's, for example, why I'm looking for cenotes, a new entrance which are at the closest to the area where I want to start exploring and pushing in somewhere. I don't want to go like do long scooter dives and take 6-7 tanks to finally get there. Because what problem is with that, as deeper you go into the cave, as more your balls shrink.
Yeah.
And you do need a set of fresh balls when you want to try to push through some place where you have to take both tanks off, even making the hole bigger that you can fit through and then push through, and everything goes milk because the visibility gets all fucked up, excuse my French, gets all bad, and then you need to have your shit together, and you need to have strong nerves, you know. And very often I stop diving or dive because it got too much, or it's get to a point where I say, okay, enough for today, even if I would have a lot of gas left to go, but need to turn around because it was enough for today. And then you go again and again and again. Yeah, and then leave my gear out in the jungle, hanging in between the trees, and come back with new tanks and go again and again and again. That's probably the most difficult part of exploration in this area, to not give up on a special area. That the connection of Sakaktoon and Dos Ojos, I was searching for 14 years. I didn't give up. 14 years. Yeah.
That's incredible patient.
Well, stubborn, I guess. Stubborn.
Stubborn. Well, yeah, that would be the one.
Yeah. That's incredible. We've had a couple of cave divers on our podcast over the last few months, haven't we, Chris? We've had Andy Torbett, who's quite a big cave diver over here in the UK, and Yanis Papastimou was also a cave diver. But we were talking to Andy, and he was talking about diving in the British caves, and there's a famous or infamous, depending how you look at, entrance to one called, I believe, the Letterbox, and it's about 11.5 inches high entry point into the cave system. And Andy says that gets, at times in the year, it's already underwater at that point, and you're squeezing through as you said, Robbie, putting your tanks through first, then squeezing through the gap in the dark, and then putting your tanks back up, and then and then having to do that on the way back out, and it just sounds terrifying to someone that's never done it before. Even when you're explaining there about the silt coming up and water dropping to zero, visibility to zero, because I've done scuba diving in the sea, and sometimes even that you've only got, in Scotland you've got maybe 2 or 3 meters of visibility, and that can be bad enough at times. But the thought of absolutely opaque water must be, as you say, at times it must definitely make your balls shrink.
It does, no doubt.
It would make me quit.
No, there's also like,
I'm going home.
This is when you got that exploring bug, then when you got hooked on that, it's so addictive to go back and again, and you want to find that connection, and when you get the reward for it, like when you have found it, it's such an amazing feeling. And it's, what's really cool too is you're by yourself. Usually when it gets to this kind of diving, where it gets really, really small and milky and you can't see anything, your buddy would be more of a danger to you than he actually would be a help, because in this kind of diving, the buddy team doesn't work. You cannot rely on your buddy that he could give you air when you need it, because you don't even see him. But then you want to get out and he blocks your way. These things just get worse and worse, and every movement makes more sediment, brings more sediment up. So even you going in there, stirring it all up by yourself by searching a passage, and then you want to go back out, you'd really hope quick for some new and good visibility, or better, that the visibility get better. But if you have now another diver in front of you, he kicks it up also. So you have bad visibility the way out too. It's just getting worse. But when you work on a connection and you do a lot of dives and you go again and again and again, and you run against the wall for a couple of times, 10, 20 times, it didn't work, and finally you break through somewhere and it opens up again, and maybe even rewarded by that searched connection. It's such a real moment, because it's just you, and you just go, yes, I did it. And there's not even somebody around you, but then it's all for you, that feeling, It's cool sharing. It's also cool sharing with people later, but it's your moment. It is at that time.
You mentioned.
I understand.
You mentioned a little bit earlier, Robbie, that I believe you said you got the record for the largest underwater cave. Did I hear you say that as you were chatting?
Yeah, that's right. That was that last connection, Sakaktoon cave system to Dos Ojos cave system. That made the largest cave in the world. The one I took over, like getting bigger than Oshbelha cave. Oshbelha was for a long time the biggest, or actually was over the last years kind of a bit of a race. It became a race. It was like, I got Sakaktoon one time with Steve Bogarts. We got Sakaktoon bigger than Oshbelha. That was the first time. Then Oshbelha became bigger as another team was exploring there. Then I made a connection again, and Sakaktoon was bigger again. And then Oshbelha went over and bigger again. It was kind of like this race. And for the last couple of years, Oshbelha used to be bigger, and it stayed bigger, and it stayed bigger, and I was running against walls trying to connect Sakaktoon to Dos Ojos, and finally, when I was able to do it, Sakaktoon became at one go about 70 kilometers bigger than Oshbelha. So there I had a bit of a time now to relax. But again, now people are exploring. A lot of people are exploring it now, again on the Oshbelha system or in this area. So I'm working right now on another connection, which I'm really close. Maybe, hopefully, in a couple of days, couple of weeks, gonna have some news that I add another system to Sakaktoon, which would be another additional 70 kilometers also.
That's super
So
cool.
that's just that's just going and going. And I'm also looking at my big picture and the theory with the whole bush fracture. I do believe that we only know the tip of the iceberg of caves here, because the whole bush fracture runs from the tip of the peninsula all the way down to Belize.
Yeah.
So theoretically, it is one cave from Belize to the tip of the peninsula, tip of the peninsula, and then all the byproduct caves, that river delta, which is growing towards the Caribbean Ocean. So if that is true, we know maybe 5%, if I want to put it in percent, which is really difficult to do about something you don't know what it is.
That was going to be my next question. How, what's the potential for more caves? How big could it possibly be?
Endless.
This is the thing about this is the fascinating thing about anything to do with archaeology or exploring, is that you never know what's still potentially there or what is possible, and until you've covered every square inch of the earth, we don't know we don't know everything. So hopefully there's some incredible finds. Maybe you'll find the Aztec lost city of the gold.
I doubt it. I doubt it in this area here. The Mayans currency was chocolate beans and painted feathers. It's like, yeah, right, great. should have been somewhere else. Inca style somewhere.
Yeah, well, you never know. Maybe the cave goes really
Never
far.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. It's just it's one of those things where I think it'd be cool to go and see for yourself, to go in some of these cave systems and kind of have a look around about. Would be really amazing.
Anytime you like,
We'll be
because
there.
there is diving for everybody here. I mean, we can take people which are not even cave certified into a couple of cenotes, which are big cavern zones. So it's like huge openings, a lot of daylight coming in, and we can go in like the first 60 meters. Every trained scuba diver can do that. Who has a good buoyancy control? Every trained scuba diver can do it, and that is already amazing. But then if you also later say, hey, wow, I want to do cave diving class or want to learn how to cave dive, suddenly you have 1,600 kilometers of system for you to discover.
Yeah.
It's just it's amazing area, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you been affected just now, Robbie, with the the COVID thing? Is that an issue for you just now, or are you okay?
No, completely broke now. I don't even know if I'd be able to reopen. I had a dive shop and a little hotel, and I didn't have any income since, when was it, April, and I had to let go of all my employees, and I don't know if it keeps going the way it is right now, I don't know if I'll be able to reopen, if I get that curve there and reopen. But on the other hand, don't worry about me. I never stay on the ground. Doesn't matter how often it got hit me down. I always find a way to move on.
Yeah, that's pretty bad to hear. Is this Tulum as a whole? Is it like no tourists at all just now there? Is that the issue?
We get some American tourists coming in right now. It seems to be every day some more, but it's definitely not enough yet to feed everybody, because it became a huge tourist place here, and everyone depending on tourism. There's nothing else, no other income than tourism on the peninsula. Even the car mechanic only works if he can repair the car of somebody who works in tourism. There's nothing else. There's no agriculture. There's no industry, nothing on the peninsula, and that is hard. So every single one here, depending on tourism, and there's just too few tourists that you could actually survive in the long run if it doesn't change. If it doesn't change, who knows? Yeah.
Have you had a lockdown then, Robbie, or is it just the tourists have been locked down so can't travel, or is it a combination of both that's impacting it?
Well, both. I mean, lockdown was pretty much everywhere in the world, right? And then flying was a problem. Nobody could get out if countries are in, and it still is now. The only ones coming pretty much right now is Americans, because Americans want to get out there, but they don't let go anybody else in. And America has the highest COVID numbers too.
Yeah.
So nobody really knows where the whole thing will go. Not yet, I think. There's theories, and I think this, and you think that, but what's really happening, I have no idea. But what I do know, if it doesn't get better quickly, I'm in a position where I cannot keep my business the way I had it.
Yeah, well, let's hope things pick up kind of quickly then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was we had a little low note there. Let's make it cheery again. Let's make it happy again.
All right. I like that.
It was a bad point now. Yeah, well, that's life. That's
the good thing is they sell beer again through the lockdowns, and there was no beer to buy. We got beer back.
If it's sunny and you can get beer, everything will be fine.
Yes, I think so.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You were saying as well, Robbie, that did you say you did diving as part of an expedition at Chichen Itza as well?
That's right. Yeah.
And is it near the kind of the UNESCO site for the tourists, or is it in the kind of surrounding area? How close are you to the sort of main monuments that you kind of see in the tourist books, for want of a better word?
No, in some places we were walking with our gear through the tourists, like through inside the site. We were climbing up on top of one of those pyramids, and they had built a type of a shaft or a well into the top of the pyramid. We were rappelling down through the pyramid into a natural cave which was there before they built the pyramid. That is the really Indiana Jones stuff,
Totally.
Yeah, so there was some cool expeditions, and then a bit farther out there was the diveable cenotes, but it's really amazing. That area is protected, and it does definitely need permits from government to be able to go there.
Yeah, and was that what you said you were finding was that where you found the sort of larger amounts of human remains? And has it been pretty much decided now that were they sacrifices rather than, thrown in as dead bodies, or what's the current thinking in regards to that?
I do believe that all of that was happening in different sites. There is places where the scientists, the archaeologists have proof, as much as you can prove, half proof, right? That there was rituals going on. Like, for example, the main cenote is inside the Chichen Itza site. There was human bones in there. They were taken out a long time ago, but they do believe it was rituals and gifts to the gods. Then there is another site, not so far away from here, where we have 118 skeletons in the bottom of the cenote, and it is believed that was a graveyard for the upper 10,000 of that city nearby, which is called Koba. So not everyone had the privilege to go there, but it was for maybe the royals. That was their graveyard. So when they passed away, they were put in there. Because some of the skeletons, most of them actually, or of these skulls mainly, had how is it called? They were manipulated during life. What people did, for example, on little babies, or what the Mayans did on little babies, they were putting with ropes two wooden black planks onto the back of the head of the children when the cranium is still soft. So they deformed the shape of the skull, because that was just a privilege for rulers to do that. That's also what archaeologists believe. I mean, I'm not an archaeologist, but that's what I heard and learned working with these people, no? Or some of them had jade inlets inside their teeth, so they made holes into the teeth and then squashed jade in there, or filed the teeth that they had the shape of like triangle, all of them, so that it looked like a wild animal or stuff like that, which was apparently a warrior privilege, you know? Stuff like that. And then
it sounds a bit crazy that you would squash somebody's head with some wood or file teeth as a privilege.
Yeah. And I don't know that there's. And then there was.
The Egyptians did it as well, didn't they? The Egyptians were like Akhenaten, had the heads bound with cord to form the extended skull.
Yeah, that is not only in the Mayan culture like that. There's some stuff like that. And in books they had found also that a sign of beauty was when people had, how's that called, when your eyes go like that?
Oh, cross-eyed.
Cross-eyed. So they did take a piece of hair or a bit of hair and put a little chocolate bean or something in the front, hanging right here on little kids. So they always were looking at that bean. So they make their kids look like with a long pointy head, be cross-eyed and file teeth and think that's sexy. I mean, and it was also a status symbol to be fat, because that you could see, oh, they are rich, they can eat. So fat, cross-eyed, deformed head. Wow, how could you resist, right? Well, in time, people go through different fashions, I think, but
this sounds like
it's funny.
This sounds like most of the girls that are interested in me.
He's not even joking, Robbie.
Yeah, well, see.
That is tremendous. What an interesting. It's interesting though to find that's what they did, and you found, evidence of that as well. That it's not just a crazy rumor in some carving on a wall that people have deciphered. You've actually got the physical proof of that. It's quite.
Exactly. And then in another cave, we found that was a really small, nasty, muddy hole, and we crawl in there. It was just big enough to just be pulling in there, and then we come into that little chamber, and there was around 12 skeletons, 12 skulls in there, and there the archaeologists believe that they dumped these people because they were sick. They were deformed skulls. They were like huge skulls and stuff, and they believe. That's my little daughter right there. Get to mommy. Go on. So they believe that was sick people which had been dumped, trying to get rid of them because they had like a plague or something, and so they shoved them into that hole. So there might be a lot of different reasons why bones ended up in those cenotes, and some of them probably just as trivial as fell in and drowned,
Yeah.
So but there was a lot of stuff going on.
Is there anything anything that's rumoured that you would like to explore, Robbie? Is there anything that you've heard whispers of that something may exist and that you would like to find it? Is there anything like that?
There is one place I really, really would love to be within the team to get in there as the first people. There is a huge chamber, a huge cenote to be found right underneath the main temple of Chichen Itza. It is even that they found this, that the cenote is underneath the temple by ground penetrating radar. They sent the waves down and realized there was like a huge chamber, an empty chamber, and they were able to see the water too. And there could be something which would be a passageway coming up out of that room, but the last layer of the pyramid is closing it down. Because these Maya pyramids, they started kind of small, and then they put another layer on top and another layer on top. So the center pyramid is way, way older than the outside one. It's like a bit like an onion. And apparently it looks on those pictures that they even tried to close down the passageway into the cenote by putting that last layer on top of it, intentionally. So if that is true, that they had an access there, and the pyramid was built on top of it, the cenote down there must be loaded, full of artifacts. Must be. Wow. So I was working with a group of scientists which tried to get a permit for excavations there, that we could maybe get into there, but it takes time. But that's something I do really want to be here. I want to be there.
No, is it something, are you never worried that you might find something particularly gruesome, or do you never have any fears about what you might find? Is that not something that worries you? Are you not scared that you're going to get a curse, or?
That's what I was going to ask about a curse.
No, not really. No. We're not having mummy unwrapping parties, so I'm fine. I don't think the curse will get me.
No Curse of the Jaguar God or the Jade Princess or any other B-movie type title.
Probably not, but I had some encounters which were like amazing. One time I went exploring, went into a cave, went through a tunnel for about a kilometer and popped up in a new cenote which I didn't know, nobody knew that it's there. And I pop up in the middle of the jungle, and there's the ceiling above my head, and I look with my light. It's like, oh, beautiful cave, wow. And I go over this way, and where the ceiling came together with the floor, my light beam, my dive light, is reflected by two beams coming back like that. Boom. And I was like, holy shit! What's that? And as my eyes adjusted a little to the darkness, there was a full-grown jaguar laying right there in the corner there, and it stand up and start walking towards me. And it was just like in Discovery Channel or something. The head down, the shoulder blades were going up and down above his head. It came through the daylight. And it was just amazing. When the sun hit the fur on that animal, it was crazy. It was so beautiful at some point, and it was the scariest moment in my life too. I was at the same time, and I was just freezing. I couldn't move anymore. My last thing in my head was blended with a dive light, blended. You know? So I held my light like this into its eyes. I was still waist outside in the water, and the cat was just right in front of me, standing right in front of me, 3 meters away. So we were like right eye to eye contact, and me frozen with my light. The cat started walking along the waterline there, up and down, like in the zoo when they walk along the cage, but there was no cage. It was just a cat, you know? And then it stopped in front of me again and went down like this. And I said, oh my God, it wants to jump. And I tried to get backwards and I couldn't Couldn't know why, but it couldn't. But I lowered the light, and as I lowered the light, the cat stood up again. And I put the light up again, and the cat went down again. And then I could see it only was curious what's behind that light, and it couldn't probably sense me because I was covered in neoprene and just coming out of the water, so I didn't smell a human. So it was curious, what's there? And then my visibility got worse and worse, and I couldn't figure out what the problem was, but I couldn't see the cat anymore. And then I realized I had still my mask on, and because I was sweating like a pig, it started to fog up, you know. So I swear, it took all my force, all my power I had to get that, to lift up that mask and have it like halfway there, and then I could see the cat again. It was like frozen again, and then it starts just like walking up and down again, looking, and I guess when I took that mask off, it starts smelling me. So it got a little more uneasy, you could tell. And it disappeared behind a huge boulder, looked one more time like that. Oh yeah, it's still there. And then it walked out in the jungle and disappeared. And then I looked at my computer, my dive computer, and it was 10 minutes surface time. I was 10 minutes that close with that cat. That was the 10 longest minutes of my life.
Jesus. Yeah, that's lucky. I think you got the cat in a good mood.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's super cool. And as we head on to now, I think that's a beautiful point to start wrapping that up on, because that is a super cool story, Robbie. That is awesome. Just before we all head out of here, just if people are interested in yourself, Robbie, and would like to find out a bit more about you, where can they find you on social media or on the internet? And we'll put this in the notes and we'll send some bodies your way.
There is a webpage called robbieschmittner.com. It's BIE, like Robbie Williams, like that. And Schmittner is T, robbieschmittner.com. Same in Instagram, and Facebook is actually called, I think, Shibalba Schmittner. But also, if you Google my name, you find it, Robbie Schmittner. You find all those things.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
And I think we will keep up to date through Instagram with what you're doing, and if you eventually get the permit, for the exploration that you want to do, we will, we'll speak to you again at some point. Hopefully, if you get underneath there, and that'd be awesome.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much for taking the time, Robbie, and it's been a pleasure, and it's your work is really fascinating. So yeah, thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you very much. One question.
Yeah.
Could you send me one of those mugs, the Silly Goose Gang?
One of these mugs?
Yeah. I like it.
No problem.
Cool.
We'll get one.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
We'll get your address and we'll get that sorted out for you, Robbie. That is not a problem at all.
Awesome. Oh, one more thing. I'll make it very quick because I forgot to completely about it. I do have an awesome project starting. It's called the Shunan Ha Expedition. Shunan Ha is the Lady of the Water. I'm gonna have in February the first all-female cave exploration running here in the jungle. I'll be just there for location and help with like finding the cenotes and stuff, but I have some very talented female divers that get out and try and make some connections and exploration. Okay. And it will be an awesome project, but we need help from people out there. We made a GoFundMe project. You can see that all on all of my social media and webpage. Mm-hmm. The Shunan Ha project, look it up. It's very cool. There's some very, very talented female divers going to do the first all-female expedition, and we do need a little bit of help of it because of this corona. We have no money to make it happen, but if some people out there could help a little bit and we help making it happen, it's not only the first female exploration, it will also be a project which help for conservation of the aquifer of the peninsula of Yucatan and the jungle and all life here in this area. So look that up in my news, please.
We will have a look, and we'll send people that way. Yeah, definitely.
We'll put a tag into the show notes on our Instagram and YouTube and Facebook pages, and we'll try and get as many people your way as we can, Robbie.
Awesome, that's great.
Well, episode 34, Robbie Schmittner, thank you so much for the time. It's been really enjoyable. We've had some awesome stories, which I always love. We'll get you a Silly Goose Gang mug, and you can become an honorary Silly Goose with us. Episode 34 in the can. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.